A poor waitress covers a bill for a lonely elderly man, then is shocked when he leaves her his mansion. The cafe was nearly empty, save for the gentle clinking of cutlery and the hum of the old refrigerator behind the counter. Rain tapped softly against the windows as Ava Monroe cleared the last table of the night. Her apron was stained with coffee and the scent of fried food clung to her like a second skin. Ava was tired. Being a single mom working the closing shift and trying to make rent with tips that barely covered groceries had become her routine. Still, she forced a smile whenever a customer needed her, even if most barely looked up. That's when she noticed him. An elderly man sat alone in the corner booth. He hadn't ordered much, just a cup of soup and black coffee, but he'd been there for over an hour. His coat was fraying at the cuffs and his shoes were worn thin. But his posture was proud, his eyes observant. She approached with the bill gently folded. "Take your time, sir," she said. "No rush." He looked up with pale blue eyes that seemed both kind and sorrowful. "Thank you, miss. Ava, is it?" She nodded. He smiled faintly. "I'm sorry to say I've misplaced my wallet. I didn't realize until just now. Embarrassing at my age, isn't it?" Ava blinked, glanced at the clock, then smiled again, genuinely this time. "It's okay. I'll take care of it," she said softly. No, I can come back tomorrow." "Don't worry about it," she interrupted. "Just pay it forward sometime." The man was stunned into silence. As he stood, he reached into his coat and pulled out a small notepad. With a shaky hand, he scribbled something on the corner of a page and tore it out, handing it to her. "You remind me of someone I once loved," he whispered. "Thank you for reminding me that kindness still exists." Then he left, his figure fading into the rain. Ava unfolded the paper. Simply said, "Your heart is worth more than gold, Mr. Ellis." She smiled, folded the note and tucked it into her apron. She never imagined that this quiet act of kindness would lead to the biggest shock of her life. 2 weeks passed. Ava forgot about the note and the old man. Her days blurred together. School drop-offs for her son Mason, split shifts at the diner, and a constant rotation of bills on her mind. That night she was sweeping up crumbs near the cash register when the door chimed. A man in a gray suit stepped in, looking completely out of place in the greasy diner. He carried a briefcase, his eyes scanning the room until they landed on her. "Miss Ava Monroe?" She froze. "Yes. My name is Daniel Rhodes. I'm a probate attorney. May I speak with you in private?" She blinked. "Did I do something wrong?" "Quite the opposite," he said with a warm smile. They sat in a booth and he placed a thin folder on the table. "Do you remember a man named Mr. Walter Ellis?" Ava frowned, then nodded slowly. "Yes. He couldn't pay his bill. I covered it." "Why?" Daniel opened the folder and slid a document toward her. "He passed away 3 days ago." Ava's heart sank. "Oh, I didn't know he was alone," Daniel said softly. "Yes. He had no immediate family. But he left behind something very specific." He slid another paper across the table. Ava's eyes widened as she read the title. "Last Will and Testament, Walter Ellis." Her name was printed clearly beneath the words. "Primary beneficiary." What is this?" she whispered. "He left you everything," Daniel said. "The house, the land, and the trust account tied to the estate." Ava's head spun. "There must be a mistake. I only paid for his soup." Daniel leaned forward. "He wrote in his will that it was the first time in years someone showed him kindness without knowing who he was." Ava couldn't breathe. "You don't understand," she said. "I'm just a waitress." He smiled. "You were the first person in a long time who made him feel like a human being." The next day, Ava took a shaky taxi ride to the address listed in the will. She expected a modest cottage, maybe a small townhome. Instead, the cab turned up a long gravel path shaded by oak trees. At the end of the drive stood a massive ivy-covered mansion. "I think you've got the wrong house," she told the driver. "Nope. This is the place," he said, pointing to the hand-painted mailbox. "Alice Estate." Her knees wobbled as she stepped through the grand wooden doors. Inside, it was like walking into a forgotten novel. Sunbeams streaked through tall windows, dust motes danced in the light, and antique furniture stood silent and still. Daniel was already there, standing beside a housekeeper named Margaret, who greeted Ava with a warm nod. He rarely used the place in recent years, Daniel explained. But it's been maintained. He left it in your name along with instructions. Ava followed him to the library. A single envelope rested on the center table. She opened it slowly. Dear Ava, if you're reading this, then you've shown the kind of heart this world needs more of. I built an empire once, but I let loneliness steal my joy. You brought it back in a diner with a $4 bowl of soup. This house is yours now. But more than that, I want you to fill it. With laughter, with love, with family. Use it. Use the trust fund not for yourself but to lift others. The way you lifted me. Warmly. Walter Ellis. Tears rolled down her cheeks. Mason ran into the library holding a model plane one of the staff had given him. Mom. Can we really live here? Ava looked around the sunlit room. Yes, baby. We can. But what she didn't know, what no one knew yet, was that Walter Ellis had one more secret waiting in the shadows of that mansion. And the truth behind his fortune would soon turn Ava's world upside down. Ava adjusted quickly to the strange new reality of being the sole owner of a mansion. But even surrounded by antiques and luxury, she couldn't shake the feeling that she was living someone else's life. Every room held the weight of memories that weren't hers. It was on a rainy Thursday that she decided to start cleaning out the guest wing. The housekeeper, Margaret, had offered help, but Ava insisted. She needed to feel grounded. As she dusted the fireplace in one of the upstairs rooms, her fingers tapped something hollow behind the brick lining. Curious, she grabbed a small hammer and gently knocked the panel loose. Inside was a tin box. Her breath caught in her throat as she opened it. Inside was a faded photograph of a young Walter Ellis in military uniform, smiling and standing beside a black woman holding a baby. Underneath the photo was a sealed envelope addressed. To be opened only by the rightful heir. Ava stared, confused. She took the letter to Daniel, who had remained in town to help her handle legal matters. He studied it, then looked at her gravely. Did Mr. Ellis ever mention having children? No, Ava whispered. Daniel slowly opened the letter and read aloud. I had a daughter once. Her name was Clarissa. I was young, afraid, and foolish. I loved her mother deeply, but back then an interracial relationship was a scandal in our circles. I let my parents force me to give her up. They paid off her mother and made me cut contact. I tried to find them years later, but it was too late. She disappeared. But I never forgot her. I never stopped looking. If you're reading this, you are my granddaughter. Ava couldn't breathe. Her voice cracked. This can't be real. Daniel looked at her, stunned. We'll need a DNA test. But if this is true, you're not just the heir to his estate. You're family. The room spun. In one moment she had gone from waitress to granddaughter of a millionaire who died regretting every choice he made. The next morning, Ava sat with Mason curled in her lap, staring out the mansion's tall window. I think Grandpa Ellis was my grandpa, she whispered. Mason blinked, thoughtful. Does that mean we were family and didn't even know it? Ava smiled sadly. Yeah. I think it does. The DNA test results came in a week later. It was undeniable. Walter Ellis was her grandfather. Daniel was the one to break the news formally. He handed her a thick binder. Inside were financial documents, property deeds, and a list of Ellis family members. There's more, he said carefully. The Ellis family didn't just vanish. Walter had a brother, Thomas. He's still alive. And he has children, and grandchildren. Ava's pulse quickened. He never mentioned them. No, Daniel replied. Because they didn't speak for over 40 years. Thomas cut him off after the scandal. Ava looked down at the folder, conflicted. Was she ready to meet a family who had abandoned both Walter and her mother? The answer came sooner than she expected. One morning, a black BMW rolled up the mansion driveway. A well-dressed woman in her 40s stepped out, followed by a younger man in a tailored blazer. Ava met them at the door. Can I help you? She asked. The woman extended a hand. I'm Charlotte Ellis. Walter was my uncle. She glanced at the mansion behind Ava. You must be Ava. The tone wasn't cruel, but it wasn't warm either. We heard about your inheritance, Charlotte continued. And the DNA test. The younger man added, we want to make sure everything was handled correctly. Ava folded her arms, defensive. It was. He chose me. Charlotte gave a tight smile. Right. Chose you. After knowing you for what, an hour. Ava didn't respond. We just want to take a look around, Charlotte said, already stepping forward. No. The word was quiet, but firm. You can't just. I said no, Ava said louder. He left this to me. Not because I was convenient, but because he loved my mother. And he regretted letting people like you push them away. There was silence. Charlotte studied her eyes hard. This isn't over. And with that they turned and left. Ava watched their car disappear down the winding drive, her heart pounding with more than just fear. It was time to learn everything. Everything Walter had left behind. Ava had seen the locked door in the cellar before, but Margaret always said it was just storage. That night, unable to sleep, Ava crept down the mansion's winding stairs, past the wine cellar, past the linen room, to the rusted door at the far end. She found the old key in Walter's desk drawer. The lock clicked open. Dust billowed out as she stepped inside. The room was lined with filing cabinets. Hundreds of documents, folders, journals. Some dated back decades. But what caught her eye was the collection of notebooks marked for Clarissa. Inside, Walter had written letters to his daughter. Pages and pages. Dear Clarissa, I wish I could hold you. I wish I had been brave. Every year on your birthday I lit a candle in the chapel and begged God to give you a good life. I hope someday you'll read these. I hope you know I never stopped loving you. Ava sat on the floor weeping. Her mother had died when Ava was just 6. She'd never spoken of her father except to say he had left long ago. And now Ava knew the truth. She had never been abandoned by chance. She had been separated by shame. By silence. But Walter had tried, too late, but he had tried. Among the journals was a final envelope. To Ava, my only grandchild. You may not understand why I left this all to you. But I see your mother in your strength. In your kindness. I built a fortune but lost my family. You gave me a second chance to do one thing right. This house is yours. But more than that, so is the legacy. You have the power to rebuild the family I lost. Ava wiped her tears. She knew then this wasn't about money. It was about restoring something much more powerful. Hope. And just as she closed the final journal, the house phone rang. It was Daniel. Ava, he said quickly. You need to see the will's addendum. What now? She asked, exhausted. He took a breath. There's another property. Hidden under a trust name. But here's the thing, it wasn't left to you. Her heart sank. Then who? Daniel replied, it was left to your son Mason.